I believe that if that person or that individual don't have full understanding of the question you mentioned, Sister Todd, if he doesn't go further to study and to seek. I remember when we was in Angel and Brother Radas, Myron and myself and people, we were looking at the principle of David's dance. And I was saying, but the dance that David was dancing was an unrighteous dance because he was gallivanting, take off his shirt, and I'm saying, but a righteous man would be. But after we sat there and we prayed and we script this we spin the Bible pages, we realized and we come to the conclusion, yes, it was a righteous dance.
Right.
So you understand? So the conscience would guide us if we really want to know
yeah, if
the
you
truth.
want to
if
know.
we really want to know.
Yeah.
But we cannot say but because we're ignorant, because ignorance is no excuse for sin.
Right.
So we cannot say we are ignorant of something when we don't go and search for it. So as I said, Sister Todd, we can willfully ignorant of something, or we can what? Negligently don't want to know what.
Or we can genuinely don't want. All right. Thank you very much, Brother Todd. So, as I was saying before, there are two types of ignorance. There is genuine ignorance, which means that you don't have opportunity or resources to know. Then there is willful blindness and willful ignorance and self-imposed blindness, which means that you had the opportunity and the resources, but you neglected to know. So there are two types of ignorance. So when we're talking about guilt, as long as we had the opportunity to know, and we did not know or we neglected to know, we are guilty. Brother Todd made a very important point. If you do something out of ignorance, something that's wrong, it does not take away your guilt. But Jesus makes provision for that form of ignorance. But so long as there is opportunity and resources, you have no real excuse. So we need to understand the two types of ignorance. For example, look at this. Listen to this point about, let me read this Bible verse first. So the Pharisees came to Jesus. They wanted to understand certain things. They thought that they knew enough. They didn't want Jesus to say anything. It says here in John 9:14, if you were blind, you would have no sin. But you say, we see, therefore your sin remains. That is a type of willful ignorance. They are rejecting the truth because it affected what they believed. They were willfully pushing the truth aside. That is willful ignorance. That is willful self-imposed blindness. They chose to be blind. For example, the servant of the Lord says, if you have an opportunity to go where truth is being taught and you refuse to go, it is accounted of God as willful ignorance, willful blindness, which means that you had opportunity and you had resources, but you made a choice not to go. All right? So long as you can know, God sees you as you should know. So we cannot rightfully honor God with a claim of ignorance when we have the Bible. Because it means that we have opportunity and we have resources. I'm coming to you, Brother Michael. Let me finish this point. Another talking about the same presumptuous ignorance. To him who knows to do good and does it not, to him it's a sin. James 4:17. That's talking about willful neglect, willful ignorance. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, and neglect amounts to rejection, I will also reject you, seeing that you have rejected the law of your God. Now, if we have had listen to the question, remember what the question says. Now, if we have had no opportunity, no access to resource, to learn a certain Bible truth, no opportunity, no access, God does not hold me accountable. Right? But the Bible teaches that I am responsible to God for all the light and knowledge that I have and could have had. Many people who refuse or neglect to study seek or learn or listen will be given up of God because they have rejected knowledge. To play the ostrich in these exceedingly crucial matters is fatal. Right? It is my responsibility to hunt diligently for truth. So there is a claim to ignorance that's genuine. There is a claim to ignorance that's not genuine. It is neglect. And so long as we have opportunity and access to resource, we have no excuse. Go ahead, Brother Rogers, and then Brother Todd. So this is just two forms of ignorance that I think I would be good to point out.
Yes, I just want to share something that happened yesterday at work as we discuss this topic. So I was sitting outside reading, trying to get my thoughts together to put my sermon together. And some of my colleagues came in and they sat inside of the little house that we sit in. And one of them said, "This woman, every minute she has send me Bible stuff. And I don't know where she has sent them to me for, so I did listen. As I set up, when you're going to school, when you go to basic school, do they prepare you for higher learning, for primary school, and from primary school to high school? He says yes. So I said, then, if you only live to work or to learn basic, right, how are you going to go to primary and high school? I said, that don't make any sense. So if you live your life only here and hurt, how are you going to make it in heaven? You won't know how to live in heaven. And this is why this is a preparatory time to prepare us. So if you hold to that belief, then you will never see heaven. And he went on to say he was brought up in a Christian home. His mother was a Christian. His father was a Christian. And he was explaining. So I'm saying, you need to understand what I just said to you. And he said he understands, but then he started looking at other people. I said, you are accountable for your walk with God, your personal walk with God. A call came in, but the other gentleman who was soaking up everything that he was saying, when he left, I said, listen to me. He had his earbuds in and he took them out. I said, you are responsible for the choice.
Because you had an opportunity to go to class, but you did not go to class. Opportunity was there and resources were there. Go ahead, Brother Todd, and then I'm going to read a quote and bring the curtain on this one.
See, God is so wise and so loving. When you mentioned that, Sister Todd, about willful ignorance, you see, in the spirit of prophecy, she said that the slaves will be dealt with as if they never existed.
Yeah.
That's mercy. Because they never had an opportunity nor the resources.
Some of them, right.
Yeah. So, the slave master would be the one who would be charged because of refusing to give the slave the resources or the knowledge that there's a true living God. So that's where you see that God is truly loving,
Yeah, he is.
Because if he would judge those slaves as if
they never had opportunity
or resources. So if God should have judged them as the question would have said that as a disobedient, then that would be a cruel God. Because they never had opportunity, they never had resources, so God had to truly deal with them as they've never existed.
Right. Oh, that's a merciful God, isn't he? A merciful God. Listen, as I bring down the curtain on this question, I have two thoughts from the Spirit of Prophecy to read. So we're talking about willful ignorance. And I read the Bible verse about the Pharisee who thought that they could see. And Jesus said, well, if you can see, then your sin remains. Right? They didn't want him. Listen to this. This is he that heareth the word. The Pharisees of Christ's day closed their eyes lest they should see, and their ears lest they should hear. Therefore the truth could not reach their hearts. They were to suffer retribution for their willful ignorance and self-imposed blindness. But Christ taught his disciples that they were to open their minds to instructions and be ready to believe. He pronounced a blessing upon them because they saw and heard with eyes and ears that believed. So here you have the Pharisees who thought that we already know, we don't want to hear from you, Jesus, because it was uncomfortable. The conviction that came to them were uncomfortable, so they closed their eyes and shut their ears. But that did not save them from what was about to happen to them, because they willfully did that. They could have heard what Jesus was saying, just like the disciples, but they turned away. Every time we have an opportunity to know truth, to learn truth, and we refuse to take the opportunity, we are sealing ourselves in willful ignorance, and it is a self-imposed blindness. We have to just open our minds and let the light come in. Let it come in. All right, talking about the sin of ignorance. Leviticus chapter 4. And then I'm going to read the quote on it and leave it. All right? It says in Leviticus 4, reading from verse 1, and I'm going to skip a few verses, just follow. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a soul shall sin through ignorance against any of the commandments of the Lord, concerning things which ought not to be done, and shall do so, and shall do against any of them, if the priest that is anointed do sin according to the sin of the people, then let him bring his sin which he hath sinned, and a young bullock without blemish unto the Lord for an sin offering. So if the people committed sin, and the priest, who was a human being, committed sin, they should bring a bullock before the Lord. They should bring a sin offering. That's the priest. All right, it continues, and he shall bring the bullock unto the door of the tabernacle and of the congregation before the Lord, and shall lay his hand upon the bullock's head and kill the bullock before the Lord.